Hello, hello, and welcome to this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom. My name is Susanna, and today's topic is emotions in the workplace. So in the last video, Setting Boundaries the HSP Way, I was quoting from a very good book, specifically for highly sensitive people, and I will keep quoting from this book today, Making Work Work for the Highly Sensitive Person by Barrie Jaeger, Ph.D. So I was quoting from a chapter on stress management the HSP way. So I will keep quoting. It's the same chapter, stress management the HSP way, specifically on emotions in the workplace. And this content will be valuable both for highly sensitive people and people who don't identify as HSPs. But it is super important because one thing is what's written in the job description, what is expected from you from, in accordance to the role that you are, the function you have, the role you have, the position you have in an organization, a company, the workplace. But, the emotions that you are expected you know, to show in the workplace, they are not necessarily written down in the job description. So, yeah, there are a lot of things, um, unspoken rules, things that are not explicit, but that you're expected to comply with. So this passage will help us a little bit to clarify those things. So if you enjoy this content, please subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, and also share your aha moments and key takeaways in the comment section so that we can uplift and inspire each other. And thank you in advance for your participation. All right, so as I said, Making Work Work for the Highly Sensitive Person by Barrie Jaeger, PhD. I will be quoting from the chapter Stress Management the HSP Way. So I quote, being on emotional labor. Every job requires you to be on in some way. You have to act grown up, professional, and so on. And there are even specific emotions required for some jobs. For example, a flight attendant doesn't argue or fight with an angry passenger, and a policeman doesn't give a cheery hello to a bank robber. That could be bringing the wrong emotion to the job. Sometimes we're paid to express certain emotions at work. A salesman has to be optimistic, a mother nurturing and loving, and a company hatchet man able to eliminate jobs without guilty feelings or squeamishness. The honest emotions an individual feels are not emotional labor. True feelings are congruent feelings, but may not be welcome at the workplace, especially in a dysfunctional drudgery institution. Often when we start a new job, the freshness and excitement gives us the episodic acute stress that we can ride with for a little while. In time, however, the fatigue increases and the ability to stay on gets harder and harder. We slip into chronic acute stress and the job begins to cost us. With a job that requires a lot of face time with others, a person will experience stress, even if he or she is an extrovert. And in order to recharge, we need regular breaks from this face time, but that isn't always provided. Such breaks could be time off, comp time, rotation of jobs to behind the scenes job, a lounge where employees can rest, or regular debriefing and stress meetings in which employees can discuss their emotions about work. Matching the job and the emotion. Whenever the emotions you're expected to bring to work are not what you really feel, you're being incongruent. When that happens, you and the job no longer match. And staying with this job is stressful and will increasingly shift you into chronic and eventually traumatic stress. Staying under such conditions is also damaging your intuition, the inner rudder that you need to navigate through life. Let's reiterate the difference between learning and loving a task and actually doing it. For example, many HSPs love law. That is, they love the mental exercise, the complexity, nuances, and creative strategies available to the lawyer. But the actual practice of a specific area of the law may not be harmonious with a particular HSP's temperament. Litigation lawyers are trained and need to be aggressive. They're paid to do that. This is their emotional labor. Psychologists and consultants dealing with the workplace are starting to pay attention to emotions, how they are managed, and how they're used at work. We all know emotions go to work along with the rest of ourselves, but this has often been ignored or played down. This new development has given us some basic concepts pertinent to our experiences and needs. We'll discuss two of them, emotion management and emotional labor. We all have emotions, and how and when we use them is our management of them. Everyone does some kind of emotion management every moment of the day. Religious and secular holidays, for instance, are times when certain emotions are expected of us. The work ethic, for another example, is a term that conveys information about the combination of behavior, emotions, and values expected at work. The culture of a company, its values, beliefs, stories, and ambience, may favor certain emotions over others. A company with mostly single individuals is going to have an entirely different emotional atmosphere than a place where the majority are family people with plenty of photos on the desk, company picnics, and a company baseball team. While business-like behavior is expected on the job, the culture of the company usually includes water cooler time, when we just gather around and chat during working hours, and it's not a formal break or lunch time. Progressive companies see this as part of a natural process of bonding and communication that helps employees build relationships with others in the company. It's informal, suggesting the emotional labor of one's job has momentarily been set aside and serves a subtle but important service. This is where we learn who is a team player, who is a loner, who is the real power behind the boss in the lab department, who's working on a special report and is struggling with information that Joe in the department 2 floors away could solve quickly, who has a new baby or just lost a parent. Daniel Goleman, author of Working with Emotional Intelligence, would call this the social radar that's needed to develop our political smarts in order to survive and thrive in the workplace. Some social attributes of a job are overlooked by HSPs. Since most HSPs are introverts, we're not drawn to socializing behaviors at work as quickly as extroverts. We're slower to become one of the group. It's important to make small efforts to fit in and develop some connections with others. It helps to lessen any perceptions that a person is a loner or is standoffish. This is particularly significant for HSPs since being different from others, we're easier targets for scapegoating. What often happens is that HSPs enter a field or job with certain expectations. A particular job may inspire an emotion in us, the initial feelings of idealism, adventure, or glamour. But the work itself is not the same thing as the values held in the workplace. End of quote. All right, so this is really helpful to learn to navigate the emotional landscape of the workplace. So one thing, as I said, one thing is, the formal criteria, like these are, this is the job description, these are the tasks that you will perform, these will be your duties, these will be, the kind of responsibilities you will have, this will be your position within the hierarchy, within, the organization. These are the competences you need to have. This is the kind of professional training or academic training we expect to have prior to entering for this position. These are, the formal criteria. These are, the different things that you're expected to do. But not very often do we speak or do we hear about, explicitly the emotional labor. And that's why I find it so well written and so well explained in this book, Making Work for the Highly Sensitive Person by Barrie Jaeger, Ph.D., that we have to do our emotional labor at work. That's part of the work, even though it's not expressed explicitly. That's not something written in our job description. That is not something that we are, rewarded for when we have maybe our yearly or ever so often, evaluation, assessment of our performance. That is not something that will maybe be evaluated and discussed openly or explicitly. But nevertheless, that's something that is expected of us. We have to have the right emotions at work, and we have to remain professional. We have to remain, productive. We have to, find our place in the group also. So yeah, we do bring our emotions to work, but our true emotions, our sincere emotions, what we are truly feeling, those emotions are not necessarily welcome, depending on the work that we do, and depending, what kind of image we have to give in the workplace and with clients or with, whatever kind of people we are interacting with at work. but yeah, I feel this is something important to discuss, both so that we know what is actually required from us, even if no one tells us that explicitly, and also so that we can plan our career better and our, choices when we apply for a job or when we go through the recruitment process and so forth, so that we see beyond what's written in the job description or the advertisement for that position or what is being said in the interview and so forth. There are often, explicit or in this case, implicit expectations when it comes to emotions and what kind of, emotions we are allowed or expected to show or not, what is appropriate or what is, what is coherent with, with the role or the position that we will occupy. So that is the emotional labor that, we might need to, suppress our true emotions and deal with them later, manage our emotions while at work. That's part of the work of being in the workplace, and then deal with our emotions later, our true emotions. But yeah, as we have been, discussing and learning in quite a few videos now on this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom, emotions count a lot. Emotions have a huge, huge impact on humans. We have seen a few different aspects of that, both when it comes to the generation of new subconsciously held programs and beliefs, both when it comes to the creation of our inner maps that are created during our formative years, childhood and teenage years, both when it comes to all kinds of things when it comes to creating our psychological structure and infrastructure and our outlook on life and the kind of programs that will be running on autopilot in our subconscious mind, which is the computer. So emotions are super, super powerful. And I have also been, showing and explaining how emotions can be trapped in our physical body and how that can create all kinds of imbalances, distortions in our energy system and in our physical body, how emotions can create physical pain, it can create all kinds of imbalances, depression, so many things because they're trapped emotions. And then when we do energy work to release those trapped emotions or release that emotional charge, things get so much easier for us and it's so much easier to get back into state of balance, right? But yeah, so that is an important part since we spend so much time depending on where you live, depending on what kind of company or organization you work for, but it's common to work 8 hours a day or more. So yeah, a very significant part of our awakened time, we spend that time in the workplace, and therefore the kind of emotions we feel in the workplace also are super significant for our overall well-being and our outlook on life. And new subconsciously held programs and beliefs can be formed at any point and generated at any point in time. So we have to be super careful also, when choosing our workplace, when choosing the organization of the company I want to work for, and to kind of see between the lines, that sometimes companies and organizations are often very good at marketing. Usually it's the HR department that works on the image they want to give for the company, as the profile, the brand, or the image they want to give to the public about the company. Doesn't mean that everything that that they show off, doesn't mean that all of it is true. But yeah, they have to attract talent. They have to attract employees to do the work. So obviously they too work on giving certain brand or certain image, certain narrative around the company or the organization, to attract talent. But then again, doesn't necessarily mean everything is true that they show, right? They show the best parts, or they tweak it in ways that mm, yeah, will put them in a good light, so that people will want to work for them, So we have to do sometimes some kind of detective work so that we don't end up in a workplace that will make us miserable, or a workplace that is, you know, where either the work itself, the tasks, the duties themselves, or the kind of office policy, politics, or the kind of dynamics we'll find ourselves in an everyday setting, so we don't end up in a workplace that will just drain us horribly, and that will just make us miserable, right? So we need to know that, yeah, we have to find the right place that is a match with our temperaments and our personality trait as highly sensitive people. So we can never, ever underestimate the importance of emotions in the workplace, both our own that we will have to manage, the emotional labor we will have to do on a daily basis while at work, and that's part of the workload, right? But also, dealing with emotions from other people, because not everyone is, you know, skilled or talented at, regulating their emotions or managing their emotions, or um, yeah, many people just, in the workplace, they get frustrated, they just yell at others. That's quite common phenomenon. And especially people who are higher ups in the hierarchy. There are many people higher up in the hierarchy that don't really bother to learn to communicate in effective ways. Because, yeah, why bother if they have already managed to get to a high position? They do whatever they want, basically. And they know they are protected because the status quo will always protect those who are higher up in the hierarchy, those who have more power, and will always try to put, or I'll not say always, but often try to put the blame on those lower in the hierarchy. And yeah, giving the blame to those who have less power over the situation, so to speak, and just have them, deal with it. So yeah, emotions can be a real challenge in the workplace. But yeah, we have to be aware. We have to be aware that is also required of us. Not only have all of the competencies, all of the right trainings, or the professional trainings, or the academic trainings, or whatever courses the employer wants us to have finished or completed before starting the work, right? So that we are prepared and trained for the mission, or the responsibilities we'll have. But yeah, there will also be unspoken, implicit expectations on the emotions that we are supposed to you know, show at work. Many people opt for, not showing anything, and just, putting on their social mask and trying to be more or less like robots, pretend they don't feel anything, pretend they don't react to anything, and just try to blend in, so that they will not stand out in any shape or form, and kind of pass beneath the radar, and not be the target of scapegoating, or not being, the target of whatever bullying or whatever, dynamics could be happening in the workplace, right? But just trying to, yeah, not be seen too much, not create any kind of trouble, right? So that they will not attract uh, the anger from the wrong people. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot to be said about workplaces. Things are not always what they seem on the surface, and especially when it comes to workplaces, because there are so many things involved. So much at stake, both when it comes to salary, when it comes to all kinds of benefits, when it comes to the possibility to make a career, to make progress, and climb the ladder within the company or within the organization, and get access to more and more interesting position, with more responsibility, with more status, with more prestige. So yeah, a lot of envy going on also in the workplace, and a lot of gossip and stuff, with people who are frustrated about their situation, and then instead of doing something to improve their situation or their position, or acquire more skills and so forth to be more attractive for the employers, they just take it on. take it out on others instead, you know. Um, so yeah, we need to give that a real thought, a real analysis before entering any workplace. What kind of emotional environment there will be, what kind of emotional um, charge we will be exposed to, and what kind of emotional labor or emotion management I will have to be doing on an everyday basis. For instance, many highly sensitive people, we want to help others, we have so much empathy, and we feel for others who are going through difficulties, or we feel for others who have a less privileged position, or who are struggling. We want to help them, we want to help them get a better life situation for themselves. But sometimes what we don't bring into the equation is that we will feel more drained in a place like that, because we will always be giving more and more and more of ourselves, and there are limits to how much empathy we can give to others before we burn out. um, and that's a common phenomenon for highly sensitive people, empathy fatigue. It just gets too much, and at some point you just don't have any more empathy to give because you're just running on empty, right? So we have to be aware also of that kind of emotional drain and that kind of emotional charge in the workplace, so that we don't only let our idealistic ideas, or we want to make the world a better place, we want to improve things, we want to you know um, leave this world as a better place compared to when we arrived. you know and yeah, that can backfire, and that can drain us. It can take a toll on our health also if it gets too much. So this is very much connected to the previous topic about boundaries. That is a more If we are in a position or a workplace where we work with people who are vulnerable, or people who are going through very tough times, or where we we want so bad, we want to help them so bad, but then again we can get in our own way, and reach a state where we're running on empty, and get burnt out, and that is not a good place to be. So we have to take all of those things into consideration. That yeah, not only what would we like to do as tasks, or as profession, or as what kind of work we want to do, but also with whom do we want to do the work, and what kind of emotional environment do we want to be immersed in. Because yeah, the environment takes a heavy toll on highly sensitive people if you are in the wrong environment. We cannot just stop absorbing energies from other people. We cannot just stop feeling the emotions of other people. We will feel them. So we need to be with other people who are emotionally regulated, and who who take accountability for their own life, who will not just, project it and blame us, give us the blame for it, but who will be in charge of their own life, and um, who will see that also as part of being professional, right? Not taking on everything, taking out everything on everyone else, but assuming their own role in what's happening, right? So we want to be with emotionally mature people like that also. Yeah, it's always a balance, right? So that we don't take on too much, and we don't, give too much of ourselves, but we also, yeah, it's difficult for highly sensitive people to be in a place where you have to pretend all the time also. That would also be very draining, because we want to, thrive, we want to reach our fullest potential, we want to be able to tap into also maybe our creativity, or our soul purpose, our soul mission, right? So we can also not be in a place where we have to pretend all the time, and never show anything. That would also be wasting qualities that HSPs have. So yeah, we need to find a place where our skills and talents and innate abilities and emotions that we naturally feel are valued. That's how we can work without exhausting ourselves, and work without um, having to be in this struggle or this constant effort all the time. But we can get into a flow state, and yeah, be appreciated and valued for what we have to offer, what we have to contribute, without having to be in that, struggle all the time. So yeah, a lot of things to consider there with emotions. But yeah, never ever underestimate the importance of emotions in the workplace. Because as I said, new subconsciously held programs and beliefs can be generated at any point in time, especially when there is a strong, heavy emotional charge to it. So getting into the wrong workplace or work environment, with a lot of toxicity, a lot of unhealthy, dysfunctional, dynamics going on, that will take a toll on us, and that will take more of a toll on highly sensitive people than on less sensitive individuals. So yeah, also we need to, in this case, apply more our empathy to ourselves and not to people around us, realizing that, people we will work with, whether bosses, coworkers, and so forth, they are not part of our inner circle. They are there, just as long as there's work to do together. But if they find a better opportunity, they will leave. Or if we find a better opportunity, we will leave. So these are people with whom we will probably not spend, many years together unless we really like our workplace and we intend to stay there for decades. Which was the case in my parents' generation. But in my generation and younger generations, that is usually not the case anymore, because in the workplace, the labor market, mobility is increasing, which means that it's quite common in my generation and in younger generations to change jobs every so often, every few years, and not to stay in the same workplace for an entire lifetime, for decades. So we have to realize also that we also always have to give more empathy to ourselves than to others. It's a good thing, obviously, to be a team player and to help others out when they are going through difficulties, but never to our own detriment, because we have to last for an entire, work life, for decades. So we cannot also not stay in a place just because we have empathy with our coworkers, or we don't want to leave them. For instance, if our health is taking a toll, if things are being increasingly difficult for us, yeah, we have to think of ourselves and leave. Because the longer you stay in a healthy, toxic, dysfunctional workplace, the longer the period of recovery and healing will be afterwards. So there's no shortcuts to that. There are no shortcuts. What we accumulate over time in a toxic or dysfunctional workplace, we will have to deal with that after we leave. So that's also why it's better to be more, more selective or more discerning when entering a new workplace, so that we're not caught by surprise. And that we never ever underestimate the importance of emotions in the workplace. That is, more than anything else, the message I want to leave you with today, to really take that into account, the immense power and weight of emotions, in our everyday life, and in this case in the workplace, so that we don't have to take time off from work just to our healing because we entered the wrong workplace. We need to we need to realize that it's all a package deal, and that our emotions will go with us to the workplace. We need to give that a few thoughts before accepting a new job offer. All right, dear watchers, so I'll start wrapping up the video for today. I hope this has been eye-opening to some degree. I'll keep recording videos for you, dear watcher, and as always, take care, stay hydrated, keep learning, and I'll see you again soon in another video. Bye for now.